Gravel exploded under spinning tires. A small boy, maybe 8, stood frozen in the parking lot of Pete's rest stop, his oversized black hoodie hanging off his thin shoulders. Then his scream shattered everything. "Help! Somebody help!" Paul Morrison's voice cracked with terror as he dropped to his knees beside the crumpled figure lying between 2 gleaming motorcycles. Blood pooled beneath white hair and a distinguished white beard. "They hurt my grandpa! Please, somebody!" 23 bikers froze mid-motion, coffee cups suspended, conversations forgotten, cigarettes burning unnoticed between fingers. This wasn't supposed to happen here, not at a charity meet, not to men like Richard Morrison. The distant wail of sirens began to rise, but for Paul, watching his hero lying broken on cold asphalt, every second felt like an eternity. "Grandpa, please wake up," he whispered through tears. "Please. Before we start this story, tell us where in the world you are watching from. Also, please subscribe to Biker Stories. It will help us bring you more inspiring stories of brotherhood and justice every day." The morning sun had painted the Pennsylvania countryside gold. This was the day Richard Morrison had promised his grandson, the annual motorcycle club charity ride. Richard, 68, stood beside his Harley like a monument to dignity. The white beard that made children smile, the black leather jacket worn smooth from decades of rides, the Navy tattoo on his forearm, 2 tours of duty, 40 years of keeping his word. Paul, 8 years old with dark hair and hero worship in his eyes, wore his cousin's hand-me-down hoodie like armor. 2 sizes too big. Black fabric that made him feel tough standing next to Grandpa Richard. They'd stop for coffee, just coffee. Then the black SUV rolled up and Tyler Jameson stepped out. Designer clothes, expensive sunglasses, the smile of someone who'd never heard the word no. Trouble had found them. The fluorescent lights of County General Hospital emergency room buzzed like dying insects. Richard Morrison lay on the examination table, his distinguished white beard now cleaned, but his dignity stripped bare. The CT scan showed a concussion, 3 cracked ribs, severe bruising along his spine. The doctor, young, efficient, already moving to the next patient, scribbled notes without meeting Richard's eyes. "You'll need to file a police report for the assault." Richard's laugh came out bitter, hollow. "Doesn't matter what happened." His voice was rough with pain and something deeper. "Men like that don't face consequences. They never do." In the corner, Paul sat curled into himself on a plastic chair. 8 years old, still wearing the blood-stained black hoodie. His small frame trembled. His eyes stared at nothing. He hadn't spoken since the ambulance. The automatic doors hissed open. Sarah Morrison ran through, her face drained of color, her hands shaking as she took in the scene. Her husband battered, her grandson broken. "Richard, I'm fine." The lie came automatically, but they weren't, and everyone in that sterile room knew it. 20 miles away, Bull Morgan's phone rang. He was in his garage, hands buried in engine grease, when Jimmy Wrench Patterson's voice came through. "Bull, we got a problem." Bull listened. His jaw tightened. His massive hands, scarred from Iraq, from bar fights, from standing between the weak and the wolves, gripped his phone harder with every word. Navy veteran, attacked, 8-year-old grandson watching, black SUV, rich kids laughing. "Police report? Already filed. Accidental fall." Bull's vision went red. "Say that again." "Tyler Jameson's father made calls. William Jameson, owns half the county, got the police chief in his pocket. Report says Richard tripped. No witnesses, no assault. Case closed." The phone screen spiderwebbed under Bull's grip. Bull Morgan stood 6'4", 250 pounds of muscle, ink, and controlled violence. Iraq war veteran, 3 tours, Purple Heart. The kind of man who'd seen governments fail their warriors too many times. But this, an elderly veteran attacked. A child traumatized. Justice bought before the ambulance arrived. Not today. "Get the chapter." Bull's voice came out quiet, deadly. "Every single rider." "Bull, what are we?" "We've got a brother down, and the law just looked the other way." Within 30 minutes, the rumble began. Deep, resonant, powerful. Not one engine, not five, 42. 42 motorcycles converging from every corner of the county. The sound rolled through streets like thunder before a storm. Chrome gleaming, leather creaking, Brotherhood mobilizing. Nurses at County General looked up from their stations. Patients moved to windows. Security guards exchanged glances, hands moving toward radios they wouldn't use. Because this wasn't a threat. This was a promise. The thunder of engines announced what the law had failed to understand. No veteran stands alone. No child's cry goes unanswered. And no injustice, no matter how wealthy, how connected, how protected, would be tolerated. Brotherhood had arrived, and the reckoning had only just begun. The parking lot of County General Hospital transformed. 42 motorcycles filled every available space. Chrome gleamed under afternoon sun like war shields. Leather and steel. Brotherhood made visible. Hospital security stood at the entrance, radios in hand, unsure whether to call for backup or simply bear witness. Paul Morgan dismounted, 6'4", salt and pepper beard that marked him as a veteran of both war and life. His arms were sleeved in military tattoos, unit insignias, fallen brother memorials, coordinates of firefights that still woke him at 3 a.m. His leather vest told the story his mouth never would. Patches earned through service and loyalty, Iraq campaign ribbons, Purple Heart, chapter president. He walked through the automatic doors like a force of nature contained in human form. The ER receptionist looked up. Her fingers froze over her keyboard. Bull's voice came out calm, respectful, but absolute. "I'm here to see Richard Morrison. Sir, visiting hours are..." "Tell him his brothers have arrived." Something in his tone made her reach for the phone instead of security. Room 314 was silent, except for the rhythmic beep of monitors. Richard lay propped against pillows, his white beard stark against hospital white sheets. Sarah sat beside him, holding his hand. Paul remained curled in the corner chair, still wearing the blood-stained hoodie, still staring at nothing. The door opened. Bull Morgan filled the doorway. Behind him, the hallway crowded with leather vests and Brotherhood. But Bull didn't storm in, didn't demand, didn't intimidate. He walked to Paul first. Despite his imposing size, despite the scars and ink and barely contained violence that radiated from him, Bull knelt down, slowly, until his eyes met the 8-year-old's. "Hey, warrior." Paul's eyes flickered, the first sign of life since the parking lot. "You did good today. You stayed with your grandfather when others ran. You called for help. You didn't leave him." Bull's massive hand, gentle now, rested on the boy's shoulder. "That's courage, real courage, the kind that matters." Paul's lip trembled, then broke. Tears came, finally, and Bull pulled the small boy against his chest and let him sob. Sarah Morrison watched, her own tears falling. Bull looked up at Richard over Paul's shaking shoulders. "Navy, right?" Richard's eyes narrowed, studied this stranger who'd somehow found them. "2 tours. You?" "Army. Iraq. 3 deployments." Bull's voice dropped lower. "Doesn't matter which branch. Doesn't matter when or where. You wore the uniform, your family. I don't... And family doesn't abandon each other." Richard's jaw tightened. The resignation that had settled over him in the ER began to crack. "The police said..." "I know what the police said. I know what Tyler Jameson's father bought. I know the system failed you." Bull stood, Paul still holding on to him. "But we're not the system." He turned to the doorway where his brothers waited. 6-man shifts, round the clock, rotating every 8 hours. "Bull, you don't have to..." Bull looked back at Richard, at Sarah, at Paul, who'd finally stopped shaking. "No one touches you or your family again. Not Tyler, not his father, not anyone with money who thinks they can buy their way out of consequences." His voice dropped to something harder than steel. "You have our word, and our word is iron." 42 bikers stood witness. Brotherhood had spoken, and Brotherhood never breaks its vows. William Jameson sat in his corner office overlooking the city, phone pressed to his ear, power radiating from every word. "Chief, we need this to disappear." CEO of Jameson Development, regional kingmaker, political aspirations that reached toward the governor's mansion. Men like William didn't ask. They commanded. "The veteran? Already done. Report says accidental fall." Next call. District Attorney Carson. "Insufficient evidence for prosecution. You have my word." Third call. County General's Administrator. "Patient slipped. Medical records will reflect that." William leaned back in his leather chair, satisfied. This was how the world worked. Money talked. Connections insulated. Consequences were for ordinary people. At Pete's rest stop, the manager received instructions from corporate. Surveillance system malfunctioned. No footage available. The hard drive disappeared into a dumpster behind the building. Meanwhile, Tyler Jameson sat at Riverside Country Club's bar, surrounded by his three friends, phones out, drinks flowing. He posted to Instagram a photo of himself grinning, expensive whiskey in hand. Caption, "Above the law, 63 likes in 10 minutes. His friends laughed, high-fived, ordered another round on Daddy's platinum card. Nobody noticed the man in the leather vest watching from the parking lot. Phone camera recording everything. 2 days later, Richard was discharged. The doctor handed Sarah the paperwork, medication instructions, follow-up appointments, standard procedure. What happened next wasn't standard at all. The rumble began before Richard reached the hospital entrance. 42 motorcycles in perfect formation, 2 columns flanking the exit. Bull Morgan at the lead, waiting like a general for his fallen soldier. Richard emerged in a wheelchair, hospital policy, his white beard catching afternoon light. Paul walked beside him, no longer trembling, one small hand on his grandfather's shoulder. Bull nodded. The engines roared to life. The convoy rolled through town at exactly 25 miles per hour. Respectful, deliberate, impossible to ignore. Neighbors emerged from homes. Some placed hands over hearts. Veterans in their yards stood at attention, saluting. Others grabbed phones, filming, knowing they were witnessing something rare. A statement without words. A promise made visible. That night, Bull's garage became war room. Maps spread across workbenches, laptops glowing. 42 brothers operating like the military unit most of them once were. "Wrench," Patterson entered carrying a hard drive. "Got it. Rest stop, manager's nephew works maintenance. Kid's father is Army. He made a copy before they dumped the original." Bull plugged it in. The footage played. Tyler shoving Richard. The elderly veteran falling, head striking asphalt. Tyler's friends laughing, filming, kicking gravel. The black SUV spilling away. Crystal clear. Undeniable. "Medical records?" Bull asked. Doc Martinez slid a folder across the table. Private physician documented everything. Concussion, 3 cracked ribs, severe contusions, photographs, x-rays, detailed injury assessment. "Witnesses?" "6, said Jimmy. "Rest stop employees, truckers passing through. All saw it. All too scared to talk to cops after they heard the Jameson name. They'll talk to us, though. Already did. Signed statements." The door opened. Michelle Rodriguez entered, leather jacket over business suit, attorney credentials, and club member sister-in-law. She reviewed the evidence spread before her, security footage, medical documentation, witness statements, Tyler's Instagram post admitting he was above the law. She looked up, smiled grim and satisfied. "This is airtight. They can't make this disappear if we shine enough light on it." Bull cracked his knuckles. "Then let's turn on the spotlights." Outside, 42 motorcycles sat ready. The hunt had become a siege, and the Jamesons were about to learn that some things, justice, honor, brotherhood, couldn't be bought. Riverside Country Club's exclusive bar glowed with old money and new arrogance. Tyler Jameson held court at the corner table, his 3 friends surrounding him like disciples. Cocaine confidence in his movements, entitlement in every gesture. He held up his phone, showing the assault video to another group of wealthy kids. "Watch this part. Old bastard went down like a sack of bricks." Laughter rippled through the group. Dude, we should make t-shirts, one friend suggested, the veteran who couldn't stand up. Merchandise, Tyler grinned. I like it. Caps, hoodies. We'll donate the proceeds to more laughter. Fallen veterans. The group dissolved into hysterics. Outside, the rumble began. The sound rolled across the manicured golf course like approaching thunder. Deep, resonant. 42 engines in perfect synchronization. Club members at dinner tables looked up, forks frozen halfway to mouths. Someone moved to the window. My God, there must be 50 motorcycles out there. The rumble grew louder, closer, undeniable. Tyler's laughter died in his throat. The front entrance doors opened. Bull Morgan walked through first. 6'4", salt and pepper beard, leather vest bearing patches that told stories of real courage. Behind him, 41 brothers. They didn't run, didn't shout, didn't need to. They walked with the confidence of men who knew they held all the cards. The bar fell silent. Conversations evaporated. The piano player's hands stilled on the keys. Bull's eyes locked on Tyler's table. The formation moved like a military unit. 6 brothers to each exit, not blocking aggressively, just standing, present, immovable. The remaining members surrounded Tyler's table in concentric rings. Tyler's face drained of color. His friends looked to him, suddenly uncertain. Bull pulled up a chair, sat down across from Tyler, close enough that Tyler could see every scar, every tattoo, every year of hard living etched into his face. Tyler Jameson. Not a question, a statement. Tyler's voice came out thin. You can't. We have security footage. Bull's voice was calm, almost conversational. The real footage, not the one your father made disappear. He slid his phone across the table, pressed play. Tyler watched himself shove Richard. Watched the elderly veteran fall. Watched himself laugh and kick gravel. His hands started shaking. We also have medical records, 6 witness statements, and we have something else. Bull leaned back. Your name, your father's name, and the power to make sure everyone in America sees what you really are. Tyler's friends were silent now, sober, seeing their futures collapse in real time. You have until noon tomorrow to walk into the police station and confess. Take responsibility like a man. My father? Your father can't buy his way out of national disgrace. Bull's voice hardened. Every news outlet, every social media platform, every veteran organization in the country will make sure Richard Morrison's story and yours goes everywhere. Tyler's breath came in shallow gasps. Bull leaned forward. You think toughness is pushing down old men? Toughness is Richard Morrison serving his country at 19. Toughness is that 8-year-old boy staying by his grandfather's side when everyone else ran. His voice dropped to something colder than winter. You're not tough. You're a coward. But here's the thing about cowards. They can choose to become men. The question is whether you have it in you. Bull stood. The 41 brothers remained in position. Noon tomorrow, police station, confession, or the whole world learns your name. The formation parted. Bull walked out. 42 engines roared to life and disappeared into the night. Tyler sat frozen, his phone screen still showing his own violence, his hands trembling, his friends silent. The clock had started ticking. Tyler didn't sleep. He sat in his bedroom, mansion walls that suddenly felt like a prison, phone in hand, watching the video on repeat. Shove, fall, laughter. Gravel kicked at an unconscious man, over and over. Each time he saw himself differently, not through his own eyes anymore, through Paul's, through Richard's, through every witness who'd watched a coward attack a hero. The cocaine had worn off hours ago. The entitlement had cracked. What remained was something Tyler hadn't felt in years. Shame. At 6 a.m., his father's Mercedes roared up the driveway. William Jameson stormed through the door, phone already pressed to ear, lawyers on speed dial. We're handling this. I've got 3 firms ready to... No. William stopped, turned. His son stood there, hollow-eyed, but standing straighter than William had seen in years. What did you say? No more. Dad, Tyler's voice shook but held. I'm done being your project. I'm done pretending I didn't do something monstrous. Tyler, don't be stupid. We can make this. I'm turning myself in. Silence. Cold and heavy. William's face went red. You walk into that station. You're not my son anymore. I'll cut you off. Disinherit you. You'll have nothing. Tyler looked at his father, really looked at him, and saw what Bull Morgan had seen, what Richard Morrison had survived, what Paul had witnessed. A man who'd never faced a consequence in his life. Never would, unless someone broke the cycle. Then I'll have nothing, Tyler said quietly. But I'll have something you've never had, a conscience. He walked out. His father's threats followed him to the car. Tyler didn't look back. At 11:45 a.m., Tyler Jameson walked into the county police station. Alone. No lawyers, no father, no friends. The desk sergeant looked up, recognized him, confusion crossing his face. I need to confess to assault. Tyler's voice was steady now, final. Richard Morrison, the Navy veteran. I attacked him at Pete's rest stop. I want to press charges against myself. The sergeant's pen stopped midair. Son, do you understand? I understand everything. I'm confessing. Write it down. The headlines hit within hours. Wealthy heir confesses to veteran assault after biker club intervention. Jameson Development CEO's son turns himself in. From above the law to behind bars. Tyler Jameson's fall. The story went national. Cable news, social media, veteran organizations sharing Richard's story, praising the motorcycle club's intervention. William Jameson's political aspirations evaporated overnight. His phone calls to the governor went unreturned. Business partners distanced themselves. The empire he'd built on connections crumbled. Tyler was arrested, charged with aggravated assault and battery. He pleaded guilty, no trial, no legal gymnastics. Sentencing, 18 months probation, 500 hours community service at the Veterans Center, mandatory substance abuse treatment, and one additional requirement, participation in Richard Morrison's veteran mentorship program. 3 weeks later, Tyler stood outside the Veterans Center, hands shaking again. Different reason this time. Fear. Real fear. The kind that comes from facing what you've done. Paul sat inside on a bench beside his grandfather, the blood-stained hoodie long gone, replaced with a small leather vest Bull had made him. The door opened. Tyler entered. Richard's white beard caught the afternoon light. He studied the young man who'd nearly killed him. Tyler couldn't meet his eyes. I'm sorry. The words cracked. I'm so deeply sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I needed you to hear it. From me, not from lawyers. Silence stretched. Paul watched, waiting to see if his grandfather would turn away the monster. Richard spoke slowly, carefully. My grandson asked me if I hated you. Tyler's breath caught. I told him hate destroys the person carrying it. You did something unforgivable, Tyler, but you also did something rare. You took responsibility. Richard stood, walked closer. You're not a monster. You're a young man who made monstrous choices. If you want to change, I'll help you. But you have to do the work. He extended his hand. Tyler stared at it, weathered, strong, offered without conditions. He took it, and the long road to redemption began. 6 months changed everything. Tyler arrived at the Veterans Center every morning at 7 a.m., swept floors, organized donated supplies, made coffee for men and women who'd given everything for their country. He listened. Vietnam veterans who'd come home to spit and protest signs, Gulf War soldiers who'd watch friends die in desert sand, Iraq and Afghanistan warriors who carried invisible wounds that never healed. They told their stories. Tyler heard them, really heard them. He maintained motorcycles for disabled veterans, men who'd lost limbs but not their love for the ride. His hands, once soft and entitled, grew calloused, useful. Richard guided him with firm compassion, never letting him forget what he'd done, never letting him believe he couldn't change. Service isn't a punishment, Tyler. It's a privilege. Slowly, painfully, Tyler began to understand honor. Paul watched from a distance at first, terrified, remembering blood on asphalt. But over weeks, then months, he saw something shift. Saw Tyler listen to a wheelchair-bound Marine talk about Fallujah with genuine respect. Saw him stay late to fix an elderly veteran's bike without being asked. One afternoon, Paul approached Tyler in the garage. "You're different now." Tyler looked up, wrench in hand. "I'm trying to be." "Grandpa says trying is what matters." "Your grandpa's a wise man." Paul nodded. Then carefully, "He also says forgiveness is earned, but you're earning it." It was the greatest gift Tyler had ever received. The annual veteran charity ride arrived with spring sunshine and the rumble of engines. 300 motorcycles filled the staging area. Riders from 5 states, veterans, families, supporters, a sea of leather and chrome and brotherhood. Richard stood at the center, Sarah beside him, his white beard longer now, his injuries healed. Paul wore a custom leather vest Bull had made. Honorary member, bravest kid in Pennsylvania. Bull Morgan addressed the crowd, his voice carrying over 300 idling engines. "We ride for those who sacrificed, for men and women who answered the call when others wouldn't. We ride for Richard Morrison, who reminded us why we do this." He gestured to Paul. "And we ride for Paul Morrison, who showed us that courage has no age requirement, who stayed when others ran, who proved that heroes come in all sizes." The crowd roared. 300 engines revved in salute. Paul's grin could have lit the entire county. At the edge of the gathering, Tyler stood apart, uncertain, watching the brotherhood he'd once mocked, now desperately wanting to belong. Richard saw him. Their eyes met across the crowd. Richard waved him forward. Tyler hesitated, then walked through the sea of bikers, expecting anger, rejection. Bull Morgan stepped forward, extended his massive hand. "Redemption isn't easy, but it's possible for anyone willing to do the hard work." His grip was firm, genuine. "Welcome back." The crowd applauded, not for what Tyler had been, for what he was becoming. Tyler's eyes burned. He nodded, unable to speak. 300 motorcycles rolled out together. Tyler rode with them, part of something larger than himself. Finally, 3 years later. Paul Morrison, 11 now, stood in his grandfather's garage, tools in hand, helping restore a vintage Harley. On the wall hung a photograph: Richard, Sarah, Paul, Bull, and 42 bikers grinning at the camera. Tyler stood among them, no longer separate, but family. Below the photo, a brass plaque. "Brotherhood isn't blood. It's showing up when others run. It's standing for those who can't stand alone. It's believing that redemption is possible for anyone who faces their demons." Paul looked up at his grandfather. Richard's white beard was longer now, more silver than white. "Grandpa, tell me the story again, about the day the brothers came." Richard smiled, pulling his grandson close, engine grease on both their hands. "Well, it started on a day I thought the world had forgotten what honor meant." Outside, the rumble of motorcycles passed by. Bull and the chapter on their evening ride. The sound of brotherhood, of justice, of second chances earned through sweat and humility. The sound of family. That's the power of brotherhood. That's what happens when ordinary people refuse to accept injustice. If this story inspired you, make sure you've subscribed to Biker Stories and hit that notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to remember that good people still exist, still fight, and still win. Comment below. What would you have done in Richard's situation? Have you ever been part of a community that stood up for what was right? Until next time, remember, the roar of engines isn't just noise. It's the sound of people who refuse to be silent when others need them most. Ride safe, stand strong, take care of your own.